Today's topic is the Pythagorean theorem. This comes from chapter 10, lesson 5. So before we begin, you need to get out your notes and you need your tablet for a calculator. So we will pause the video while you get out notes and a tablet. So the Pythagorean theorem says that if you take a leg of a right triangle and you square it, you take the other leg of the right triangle and you square it, you add those together, then this answer will equal the length of the hypotenuse squared. So if I had one leg equaling 3 squared, the other leg being 4 squared, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. 16 plus 9 is 25. 25 is going to be the answer to the hypotenuse squared. So if I just want to know one side, square root, and that means the hypotenuse, is a length of 5. One leg squared plus the other leg squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. 3 squared plus 4 squared will equal 5 squared. Now let's look at when I worked this out. Why did I square root? Well, because I wanted to get rid of a 2. And if I square root c squared, he becomes just 1c. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. All right, here is a question for you to try by yourself. So this guy is a leg, this guy is a leg, this guy's the hypotenuse. You're trying to find C. All right, you should have written 10 squared plus 24 squared equals C squared. 100 plus 576 is equal to C squared. Now I'm going to stop real fast. Remember, 10 squared is 10 times 10. 24 squared means 24 times 24, and using a calculator is just fine. Third line of work is going to say 676 equals C squared. And then I need to square root the left and square root the right. C is equal to 26. And if this were inches, then our answer would be inches. So most of the time, you're not going to get nice, pretty whole numbers. You're going to get decimals. So if you get a decimal round, I think the book says round to the hundredths. So if the book has directions, tenths, hundredths, whatever the book says, that's what we would do. Almost never is it going to be a whole number. All right, let's try this one. This one, we're going to find a leg. So they're going to tell us one of the legs and the hypotenuse. Notice that the legs will always be the two numbers, the two parts that make the right angle. So I could twist this around and it's still a and 14. I could twist it around like this, it's still a and 14. 18, the hypotenuse will always be the longest of the three sides. Okay, so our first line of work would say a squared plus 14 squared equals 18 squared. Our second line of work would say a squared plus 196 equals 324. Now to solve this equation, I need to subtract 196, 14 squared. I need to subtract 196 from each side. So a squared is equal to 128. Now I got to get rid of that tiny 2, so I square root each side, and I'm left with just an a, and the square root of 128 is 11.31 if I round to the hundredths. So this time I was finding a leg, and I squared, and I squared, and I subtracted, and I square rooted. All right, you try this one by yourself. again, we're finding a leg. We're finding A. It could say B. A or B means the same thing, but we're finding a leg. Your first line says A squared plus 11 squared equals 23 squared. Your next line says A squared plus 121 plus equals 529. Then A squared equals 408. Square root each side. Round to the hundredths, but in this case it becomes 20.2. What if the question looks like this? Instead of telling us the length of a leg as a number, they're telling it to us as a square root. So the length of this is whatever decimal that is. The length of this leg is whatever decimal that is. But when I write the first line, square root of 15 squared, it's just going to become regular 15, because I'm going to have the square root of 15 times the square root of 15. Now I have a pair of 15s, and I pull it out as a whole number 15. So when you see a square root for a leg, or maybe a hypotenuse, any of the sides, they could tell them to us like that. Don't change this to a decimal, because when we square it, it's going to be a nice pretty number. So let's continue. We would have plus the square root of 29 squared is going to become regular 29. Again, it's regular 29 because I have the square root of 29 times the square root of 29, which is the same as 2 29s under the square root sign. Whenever I have 2 of something, I can pull it out as 1. Equals c squared. The rest is just normal. So I get 15 plus 29 is equal to 44. 44 equals c squared. Square root each side. And final answer rounded to the hundredths is 6.63. 6.63. All right, you try this one by yourself. Find the missing leg. First line says square root of 7 squared plus b squared equals square root of 37 squared. When you square them, it gets rid of the square root sign, so 7 plus b squared equals 37. Subtract your 7s from each side. B squared equals 30. Square root, and round. You get 5.48 if you round to the hundredths. Your homework is page 632. You're going to do questions 5, 10 through 19, 30 and 31, and if you're up for a challenge, try 38. All right, good luck.